Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech podcast. I'm Seth Johnson, and joined as usual by Jason Griffin. Jason, bags packed, ready to go?
Yeah, not quite, but close. Yeah, I'm getting excited. CEDIA is less than a week away here. I can hardly believe it. Really looking forward to getting out there.
Absolutely. So you and I are going to meet up in Dallas. We've got everything lined up for what? You're there, what, Wednesday through Friday? Is that right?
I am staying through Saturday. So I
great.
arrive on Wednesday, and I am staying through Saturday afternoon.
I have the same plan. So it's going to be a couple of days of some hard work, honestly. I think we're going to try and do our day jobs, which is going around and doing, business relations type stuff with a couple of people. And we're also going to try and do the home tech stuff at the same time, do interviews on the floor and take pictures and videos and share those through social media and all that good stuff. So I think it's going to be busy for you and I, man.
Yeah, lots to cover, and definitely, trying to make that all balanced. So I'll be focused a little bit more on the front end of the trip, probably on stuff for Harrison Home Systems, my employer here in Denver. And then we'll be kind of picking stuff up as I go. And then really towards the back half, kind of late Friday and all day Saturday, really running around focusing on home tech. But I'm sure it's all going to kind of balance out, and we'll just make it all work like we've done in the past. And I'm really excited to get out there. You mentioned that we'll be sharing a lot of that on Twitter. And Seth, I want to give you a big nod. This has been an undertaking of yours I can take no credit for yet, but appreciate you putting it together. We've got HomeTech.fm/CEDIA16, so HomeTech.fm/CEDIA16, and that is a kind of what would you call it, a central holding pen there for everything that we have, thoughts related to the CEDIA show. You've been sharing some news stories as they've come up, and we look forward to sharing some posts and pictures and videos and stuff from the show floor there as well. So definitely would encourage people to go check that out.
Yep, it's basically a category that we have set up on the blog. So you can go to the blog and get the same news, but there'll be some intermixed stories in there as well. So if you're just looking for our CEDIA coverage, looking for the videos that we do on the show floor, some of the audio interviews that may not make it into the show, CEDIA16 is the place to go. And we'll have that in the show notes too at HomeTech.fm/127. And we can't go too much further without acknowledging that we record on Tuesday. Tomorrow, on Wednesday, there's a very large Apple event going on where some new phones and whatnot might be unveiled. And then actually the public introduction of iOS 10 and what is really HomeKit. HomeKit will be released to the public in a first-party form. It'll be directly on the phone, on the home screen. There'll be a home app. If you swipe from the bottom and swipe kind of over to the right, if you have any HomeKit product, they'll show up there as little devices that you can control. So I'm so excited about that. But I'm not sure if we kind of already know that's going to happen. So if anything does happen, we'll break in right here and have some crazy news of what happened in the Apple event. But otherwise, we're just going to put our heads down and talk CEDIA for the rest of the show, because that's our deal.
That's what we're here to talk about mainly. But yeah, definitely Apple, obviously a big deal. And with HomeKit finally making its way out into the wild, so to speak, or I should say the Home app rather, on iOS 10, obviously that's a very big deal. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And just with our production schedules and families and all that, we're recording here on a Tuesday. And like you said, Apple's thing is on Wednesday. So time will tell. And if there's anything that we feel really needs to be addressed, we'll break in with a special announcement there. But let's get more to the matter at hand here, and that is CEDIA. This is really our CEDIA Look Ahead special. To that end, we have a great interview later in the show, so be sure to stay tuned for that. We had Vin Bruno, the CEO of CEDIA, the organization, on, and really appreciated Vin taking the time to come on and join us. I'm sure getting ready for the show right now is crunch time, and they're probably super busy. And he took the time to sit with us this evening and really share quite a few of his thoughts on where CEDIA stands as an organization and what importance the show has to our industry and what some of the key things are that he's going to be looking for out of the show. So I really had a good time with that conversation. But before we jump into that, as usual, we want to kick around some of our own thoughts. We're going to do, Seth and I both here have some thoughts about key themes and broad topics that we think are the most important or the most prominent themes that we expect to emerge from the show. So we're going to kick those around before we get into our interview. So the first one up, one of the key themes, Seth, I know you pointed this one out that you're going to be looking for heading into the show, is video doorbells. You expect this to be a big one this year?
Yeah, well, I didn't expect one to be one, but looking at some of the pre-planning that I do and looking at the show floor map and kind of going around and ticking things off, it looks like there's going to be a lot of vendors showing off video doorbells. Doorbird is going to be there. That's one of the big ones that is touting itself as being integrator friendly. Ring is supposed to be there with some pretty big news. I think we're going to touch on a little bit later. And there's, according to Julie over at CE Pro, and her big takeaway is tomorrow as well, right smack in the middle of the Apple presentation. But there's going to be 16 vendors on the show floor showing off video doorbells.
Wow!
So this could be the year of the video doorbell. I'm not sure, but I think there's going to be enough video doorbells on the show floor in every shape, model, way that you want to look at. I mean, we're gonna be so tired of video doorbells by the time end of this show. I don't think we're going to talk about them anymore.
Well, maybe it is a good thing. It is a feature that I get clients requesting pretty often, and I have to be honest, I just haven't felt like we've had a good solution to bring to the table, and so we've reluctantly supported a few of them out there from time to time, and with mixed results, and not all bad, but definitely just things that we wish we had in our tool belt that we just don't. So sometimes it's better to just say we don't have a solution than it is to sell one that you don't feel confident that you can stand behind. And I know, Seth, as we were getting ready to record this show tonight, you shared I don't know if that was a photo of a CE Pro article in the magazine. I haven't read this month's issue, and so I'm not sure where that came from, but it looks like Ring is going to be taking a more aggressive approach to working with the CEDIA channel.
Yeah, the way I think this works is everybody kind of gets their press release put in a little early, and they have their little interviews early, and then it goes into print and then gets shipped out. So I think you get a little, if you have the CE Pro article this month already, you may already be able to flip through and see some of the advanced stuff that's going to be going on. Ring is going to be doing, according to the CEO, integration with Control 4, which is pretty huge. Big news, I think, to everyone. But it's right there in print, so it must be true, right?
That's it.
The other thing they have, I think, is pretty interesting. Besides integration with Control 4, is they're going to be pushing out a flush mount unit. It's going to offer PoE for power and IP communication, which is big too, because that's, I think, all we want to use. We don't want to use a doorbell wire, right?
Right.
As professional integrators, we want nothing to do with 2-wire. We want to put a Cat5 in and have something nice sitting out by the front door.
Yeah, and to me, that was the bigger thing of this story. I saw the Control 4 integration, which is obviously cool. I get that. I see the value there. But when I saw that they were going to be coming out with a flush mount unit, Ethernet, PoE, I mean, that to me is like, finally, because that's really, what I feel like we've been hurting for in that market. And when you're doing a new build and you've got the opportunity, or a new build or a remodel, I should say, and you have the opportunity to pull some wire, whether that's bare studs or in a retrofit environment, why would you ever want to rely on Wi-Fi, particularly for something like a door camera that's using a lot of bandwidth and is typically on the exterior of a house with, who knows, brick, stone, whatever else you have in that wall that's really degrading the Wi-Fi signal. And so personally, from where I sit, that's been one of the main limitations of the offerings that are out there, is not having that ability to hardwire. And so it's good to see that Ring is doing that. I also happen to know that Doorbird is an interesting company that I'm planning to go take a look at. I've had a little bit of correspondence with them through my job here at Harrison Home Systems. They reached out, and they seem like a team that gets it. They've been doing it a while, a company based out of Germany, I believe, and they've had that Ethernet and PoE from the start. And so I think, to me, that's a pretty critical piece, and so I'm glad to see Ring doing that.
Yep, and on that same page there's an article about a $560 doorbell from Fabaro. So there's going to be a lot of these doorbells, these video doorbells, hit the market. This one is also PoE powered, so should be for an interesting show in the video doorbell market. And maybe we can do a roundup at the end, and take pictures of every one of them, just line up, put
all the doorbells you can
handle.
handle. Yeah, exactly. Well, the Ring story segues perfectly into one of the big themes that I'm kind of interested to see. I see it developing already, and I'm interested to see it take shape in Dallas and how it will emerge from the show. And that is this concept that I'm kind of calling meeting in the middle. And what I mean by that is, Seth, we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years talking about how all of these consumer technologies are seeping into the CEDIA show floor, and whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, it is the reality. And what does that mean for our industry, and how are we going to adapt and evolve to that? But what I'm seeing right now that I think is interesting and not necessarily surprising, but just something I hadn't really necessarily been looking for, is this idea again of meeting in the middle. And I think a lot of these companies that maybe had come into the market targeting it at the very low end, maybe with a Kickstarter campaign or whatever it was, are starting to realize that home technology and the smart home are very difficult. And there's this whole industry of guys like you and me and thousands of others who have spent decades learning really hard lessons and expensive lessons in this industry, and that these companies would be crazy not to leverage that. And so some examples, one of the partnerships I'm curious to see going into the show is this Eero, which is a new Wi-Fi solution that they've partnered up with Access Networks. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with their teams and seeing what the synergy is like there. We just mentioned Ring finally coming into the CEDIA channel with more open arms. You've got Sonos finally taking a new stance on integration. I think that's long overdue, but we cited a quote, from their press release last week where Sonos really acknowledged that we've been at the forefront. Home tech pros have been at the vanguard of this industry for a long time and have a ton of experience. And I think that it's really good, in my opinion, to see companies like this that have really been focused on straight to consumer primarily, finally kind of coming around and saying, hey, maybe there's something here and maybe we need to be paying more attention. And so I love that. And it's definitely a theme I'm going to be looking at, going into the show.
Yeah, this is a really, really good one. I'm glad you actually, the meeting in the middle, I think is a great term. I'm glad you coined it, because 100% credit to you. This is exactly what I was thinking. I just didn't know how to word it. Great job doing that. Sonos is one I was thinking of. Also, Plex. Plex is a media client, and I was flipping through the trade show floor, looking at who was showing, and all the way over in the far right hand corner, there's this little tiny 10 by 10 booth with Plex written on it. I'm going, holy cow, this is crazy. Well, a couple of days later, they announced that they're going to be doing a pro service type thing. It's detailed a little bit more in the C Pro article that we'll link to in the show notes. But you're seeing that happen. Like Eero, we talked about them last week. They're going to have a pro services link on their website, which this is great. This is what should happen. And I'll add on to your experience tag that you're holding there. You're saying that we have the experience. We also have the passion. Like, we love these products, no matter what they are. And if we're out raving about them, and we're out, saying how great our Sonos systems are, our clients are going to feed off that energy and buy products from us as well. So, I mean, that's it's not so much that we've been burned so many times and we just know it works. Yeah, it's that, but we also love this stuff. We look for the good product. We look for the product that really, gets our gears turning inside of our heads and say, oh, wow, these guys really get it. They really understand it. And we want to promote their product too. So
that's a great point.
I like it. Meeting in the middle.
Yeah. And I think that, what I'll be really interested to see when I talk to companies that are doing this is, are they doing it in like a meaningful way, or are they just looking at us as maybe a conduit to move some more boxes, And so I think that's really going to be the differentiator there. And that's what I think remains to be seen, is like, are they really embracing what we're telling them? Are they giving us a little bit of margin to work with? Are they setting up proper support channels? How do you deal with becoming a dealer? What do you get for that? There's a lot of questions there, and that's really the question mark for me.
Right. And that could be a challenge, right? Because that may not have been built into their business model from the very beginning. Like,
of course, yeah.
We can definitely point to Sonos for this one. Even though we were built into their business model, I mean, they were standoffish. They were very almost hostile. I mean, there are plenty of stories in the early days of Sonos showing up at the CEDIA trade floor that they were not very interactive, let's say, with the dealers going by and saying, hey, we'd love to integrate with your stuff. There's no API. that wasn't that they were there for. They were there for Sonos and Sonos only, and nobody else. So
Right.
Learning to play with the rest of the kids in the playground is part of growing up. And I'm glad to see that, I'm super excited to see Sonos have an official API like we talked about last week. I'm even more excited to see that they're going to be integrating with the Amazon Echo. And I'm even more excited that Amazon Echo is showing up to the show and going to have a rather large booth right there and almost in the middle of the show floor.
Yeah. Yep. So anyways, that's definitely a trend. I expect to see some interesting things out of this year, and one I'll be paying close attention to. Let's move to the next one here. We're going to run through this one a little bit quicker because we've talked quite a bit about it in weeks past. But another, I guess, term that I'm trying to coin here, I've realized it's kind of hard to refer to this space in a succinct way, and so I'm calling it RSM, and that's Remote Systems Management. And so I'm using that term to refer to companies like IHG, Domots, Greenlight Control, Krika, Digital Butler. There's a bunch of them at the show this year, and I think that it's a fascinating space. I think like I said, we've spent a lot of time talking about it on the show, so I don't want to get too into the nuts and bolts, but I think companies like this have a very important role to play in the future of our industry. And I feel like 2016, when we look back, will be the year that we mark as when this RSM technology really arrived. IHG, who we had on the show very recently, was I would say a pioneer in the space. They've been doing it since 2009, so really ahead of their time, I would say, as far as when they came out with that technology. But, we're starting to see that market round out, more competitors coming into the space and trying to figure out a way to really give home tech pros tools to efficiently service and support their client systems. And I think that's hugely important for the future of our industry, and definitely an area of interest to me personally in our industry. So something I'll be paying close attention to out of the show.
Yeah, I think you have a good eye for these trends. I remember sitting down with you in 2014 in the basement of a Denver convention center and talking about the DIY convergence, and how much DIY product that we saw at the show floor that year. And sure enough, not only did that happen, I mean, it happened the following year, and we saw it just kind of pile on more. Now we have the keynote speaker of Amazon Echo product.
Right.
Speaking,
right.
That's who's speaking. Kindle is speaking at CEDIA this year. So it's like, I think that's full on. Like 2 years later, listen to Jason. He's right. 2 years later, there's going to be a ton of these things, and this is going to be like how business is conducted. One quick thing about IHG, I saw that they launched an app for their what is it called? The Envision product.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And I saw on Domots that they had Zigbee in beta. So if you're a Control 4 dealer and you have a Control 4 system, look on your Domots app. There's a little thing that says Zigbee is in beta right now. I'm sure that's probably what they'll be announcing at CEDIA and demonstrating how well it works. So cool stuff. Cool stuff coming out of that.
It's great. And Krika is doing some interesting things we won't go into here, but I'd encourage anybody looking at this space to go check them out. Greenlight Control won't be exhibiting at the show, but we happen to know on a personal level those guys will be out there. And so if you're interested in learning more about them, you could reach out to us and we could put you in touch. And definitely, we had Steven from the company on, and great guy. Definitely passed the beer and steak test. Guy I'd like to go sit and have a beer and a steak with. And so he'll be out at the show, and I'm sure would be willing to meet with anybody who wanted to learn about them. So lots of stuff going on in that space. And again, I just think that we're not necessarily there yet where RSM is playing a very prominent role in a lot of people's businesses. But I think, 2, 3, 4 years from now, I think it will. And I think we'll look at 2016 as the year when it really arrived. So that's something I'll be paying a lot of attention to. But let's move here to the next one. And this is something that, I wanted to really put some focus on this year and talk about it specifically because I think it's important. We spend, Seth, a ton of time talking about what's happening at the low end of the market and how, as an industry, we need to adapt to that. But I think it's important to note and have a quick conversation about the fact that really CEDIA is still very much a show about luxury. And one of the things I really plan to spend a lot of time going out there and focusing on doing is, arming myself for the next 12 months of architect lunches and interior designer lunches and, finding those products that really do fill a niche at the high end of the market. And when you do get an opportunity to work on these projects where the budgets are big and the owners are very discerning about what they want, it's really important to know what's out there and be able to maximize your opportunities in that space and provide great solutions to people with the more expensive tastes. And CEDIA, there's no better place in our industry to go look and gather information about that and get yourself kind of boned up for, like I said, for the next 12 months of opportunities out there. And so that's definitely something that I'll be spending a good deal of time taking a look at this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is where you get to see the cool stuff. This is this is like the 8 and whatever K is going to be out there next. This is the TV lifts, the outdoor televisions and waterproof systems that exist. I mean, the landscape audio systems that are out there right now, and those are not high end, but they're very expensive, but they look great. I mean, they look exactly like the lighting system that's installed.
And they take a specialist. That's not something that somebody can go out and just buy at Best Buy, right?
No, you can buy it on Amazon. I mean, it's definitely a specialty product, and it's a completely different type of audio system. I mean, I would say very few integrators have touched outside of the commercial space. So
yeah, I love them.
This is definitely where you see these fancy systems that the 1% of the market is going to require. I mean, it's not something that they want. I mean, sometimes these homes require a outdoor system with 30 speakers in it, and there's only one or two ways to do that, and only one of them right. So yeah, you're going to go down that road somehow or another.
Exactly. And if you don't know what's out there, then you're missing opportunities. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot to that. I think OLED TVs come to mind. Obviously, anytime you talk about TVs, that's typically a technology that people can go buy themselves. But when you get into the higher end TVs like that, there is margin to be made there, and we can be competitive typically with a company like Best Buy when you're looking at the latest and greatest in TVs. And so we love just being prepared to talk about those. I think OLED is an amazing technology. Really excited about it. So I look forward to seeing what's going on that front this year. You talked about outdoor audio, but even audio inside, right? There are a lot of applications in those higher end jobs where just slapping a 6-inch round speaker in the ceiling is not acceptable, and people want something better. They want something different. And so, there's things like invisible speakers. We are here a huge fan of James loudspeaker. I don't know if you've done a lot of business with them, but they've got a small aperture line of speakers that I think is a great sort of middle ground. The invisible speakers, some of them are good, but I still don't think that you get the performance by any stretch that you're going to get out of a visible speaker, I guess I would say. And the James small aperture is a patented system where you've got just this little 3-inch opening, and it's a full 3-way driver behind there, and they sound incredible. And you get a very clean look that matches with really modern LED lights in the ceilings. And so things like that, just going out to CEDIA with that goal in mind and learning about new and interesting things that are out there to appeal to that high end of the market is really important. Advances in panelized lighting control systems, automated shades, those are still parts of our industry that are really specialized and require a HomeTech Pro to fully leverage. And so I get jazzed up about that when I go out to CEDIA and just thinking about all the big things that we can do, and definitely something that I think is worth pointing out, that CEDIA still is very much a show about luxury.
Yeah, and even kind of skipped over the home theater, like real home theater, not the TVs on the wall and there's like a 5.1 system set up. No, like real fully constructed rooms
Dolby
around home theater.
Atmos, like 3D audio. There's a ton there. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure JBL will have a synthesis demo there. I'm sure Steinway will have a demo. The JL audio booth is usually fun to go kind of get your teeth rattled out with their giant subwoofers that they show off. So yeah, I mean, I get super excited about just sitting through some of those demos because they can be pretty awe-inspiring.
Yeah, 4K projection, big this year. Sony's been kind of the leader there, and they've got couple of different models, but
looks so nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's expensive as all get out, but it is the laser projector they have for 4K. Holy cow! I mean,
amazing.
It is absolutely beautiful.
Barco's got a new 4K one coming out. Looks like it's about 60K. there was a DPI, digital projection, I think, came out with one. I think I saw a story this week.
It was $20K.
Yeah, $20K. So that's, that's a lot of money. There may be people listening that go, oh my gosh, $20K. But for a 4K projector, prices are really coming down. And so that's exciting and definitely something worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest themes that we're going to see at the show, and it's just going to beat over our head so many times, is voice control. At this show, we've talked a number about the Amazon Echo because of their involvement in like the keynote. But don't forget, speaking of high end, that Josh AI will be launching at CEDIA. They've got a booth like right across the way from Amazon. So if you want to check out Josh AI, they're going to be showing off at the show. There's a number of other like voice control products that'll be there too. And I'm super excited to see what comes out of CEDIA this year. We're all going to be yelling at something to control something in our house by the end of the show, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have to wonder how well the demos are going to work on that noisy show floor. The vendors have their work cut out for them on that front.
Are they going to have like a sound booth that you get into and talk to the Echo? I wonder how this is going to work.
I think they're going to have to, but that'll be interesting. I guess if it works well in that environment, it should work very well in your home. And yeah, I think clearly that's a big trend that everybody's expecting, pretty obvious. We've heard the stories about the Amazon being at the show, and the director of Alexa is going to be given one of the Friday morning keynote. So a lot there. And I think that voice control, 2016 to me does feel like the year when it's starting to turn the corner from a fringe technology. The idea about voice control in the home is not a brand new thing. Going way back to when we started this show, over 2 years ago, we had a gentleman on from a company called VoicePod, and they were doing voice control, I think primarily for Control 4 systems, if I remember correctly. And they recently, actually, a story came out that they have shut the doors on that company, unfortunately. Seemed like some great people working there and had a great mission, but I think the market's just changed, and they probably just had no other choice. But
Ted on his post said that something along the lines of, Google and Apple and Amazon, these are the big guys on the block. They didn't have any interest when he started up his product a number of years back, and slowly they've worked their way into the market in a couple of different ways. What I thought was also interesting is that he alluded to in that post, and we'll include a link in the show notes, that Control 4 may have their own Amazon integration solution coming out. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like at the show, if that is something that does show up.
Yeah, well, that'll be the big thing is who's going to be showing Echo integrations and who's going to be doing interesting, compelling things with that, and who's just going to be doing, the basics and maybe just forcing it a little bit. I think that'll be interesting to see where the compelling use cases are and who's able to push that. And I think a lot of it also is probably going to come down to just maybe limitations of what Echo is currently capable of. I'm very curious personally to go check out Josh AI. I think that they are, an interesting company. They're definitely coming at it from a very different angle, very CEDIA focused. We've questioned on air the price point. They're very expensive and unapologetic about that. And I don't know if that is going to prove to be an effective strategy, if it was necessary by the amount of costs that they're running. I have no clue, but they've come at it from a very high price point. And I'm just curious to go check it out, get a feel for the company, what those guys are about. I know Alex, one of the founders, listens to the show, and we appreciate him tuning in. I think it's a CEDIA-focused voice control product. To me, makes a lot of sense, but we'll be very curious to see how Josh is coming at that and get a chance to look at it in person. But I think primarily we're going to see a lot of companies talking about Echo integrations. I think that's going to get beat over our heads, like you said at the show. And we'll be curious to see, how that looks. One of the other less maybe expected ones that you might expect me to cite is Comcast's Xfinity remote. And I'm curious to go check this thing out, not because I think it is necessarily a exciting product per se, but I don't know about you, Seth, but I've had a number of clients actually in weeks and months past bring it up when we're talking about doing control systems in their home, and they're like, well, can I still use my Comcast remote? And to me, that's just fascinating. Like to have a client say, well, will this system still let me use my cable remote? Like, that's amazing to me. And so I'm curious to see what Comcast is doing there that's got clients talking, because I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say that. I mean, I'm kind of out of the business now where I have clients, but I can say that there are a couple of friends have come up and said, "Oh, I have the Xfinity X1 system, and they gave me the voice remote, and I love using it. And they like to go and search for shows, or they say yell at it and tell it to play something, and it turns it right on. So evidently, it works well, and that's really all it needs to do to take
it
hold.
just does one thing well, and people will talk about it. I know Dish has their voice remote that was announced recently, and I'm sure they'll be showing that on the floor as well. So I'll probably try and pop by and take a look at that. Savant, of course, is shipping their remote now, which has voice control on it. So they were showing that last year at CEDIA, but if you didn't get a chance to check that out, that's definitely worth a look as well.
Yep, definitely, and of course it's shipping also. The DIY version is shipping in some of the Best Buy stores and Best Buy online. I mean, it's definitely a compelling remote, and I think they have a little leg up if they have a microphone built in. I can't really think of anybody else that's doing that. Like Control4 is not, Crestron's not, RTI is not. Like it's the Apple TV remote, the Sonos remote, and the Comcast remote that have the microphones built into them. So yeah, I think they may have a little leg up on the industry. If only there was a way to integrate it with the Comcast system where you didn't have to use the lousy Comcast remote.
Right. Well, and I think, when you talk about voice control in remotes or voice control within apps like Siri, for instance, I think that there's still a layer of friction there that we've talked about before, where users are less compelled to use it. And to me, I think that has been the number one most critical thing that has led to Amazon Echo's success as a voice control platform, is that you don't have to think about grabbing the remote or grabbing an app. You just talk to it and it does what you want it to do. And so, I think that, to me, that's the really interesting part of this story. I love seeing other companies pushing the space forward and taking shots at voice control and trying to figure out new and interesting ways to implement it into their products. But I think ultimately, the real future of voice control in the home belongs to an always listening type of system. And so whatever shape that takes, ultimately, that's where I would put my chips.
Yep, definitely. Well, I think we're running a little long on our time here. This is going to be a pretty good episode. We got a great interview coming up with Vin Bruno of CEDIA, and he talks a lot about the show, but he also talks about what CEDIA is and what it should look like in the industry and some of the initiatives they have going on. I thought it was a pretty good interview, Jason.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed chatting with Vin, and we're going to get started on that interview here in just a second. Before we do, I want to quickly mention that if you're a fan of the show and you want to support our efforts to bring you more episodes like this, there's a very easy way you can do that. You can hop over to HomeTech.fm/support, and that page will give you a little bit more information about how you can become a patron of the show. And that's something you can do for as little as $1 a month, and really just help support our efforts, again, to bring you more shows like this and help us get the word out. So we'd really appreciate that. If you were interested in supporting the show, again, HomeTech.fm/support. And without further ado, Seth, let's jump into our interview with Vin Bruno of CEDIA. Hey, Vin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Real good, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure you're really busy in the run-up to CEDIA here, and so definitely I'm glad you were able to carve out some time here to join us on the Home Tech Podcast, and I really look forward to diving into a conversation here with you. We're going to talk a little bit about just CEDIA, the organization, and where you guys are at right now and where you're headed, and then, of course, we're going to spend a good deal of time talking about the upcoming show in Dallas as well. But before we do that, just in case we've got some listeners who may not be familiar with who you are and what you do, why don't you give a quick personal introduction and maybe talk about some of your industry background as well?
Sure. I am 32 years in this industry, and I've been serving our dealers on the manufacturer side for my entire 32-year career. I was with Crestron. I was their global director of marketing. And, I like to say that I was born for this job because, 32 years is longer than CEDIA has been in existence. And it's the same people that I've known for the entirety of my career.
Yeah, that's a long time to be in any industry, and particularly one like ours, which in the grand scheme of things is a relatively small, tight-knit community. So I'm sure over that time you've forged a lot of very close connections, and I'm sure a lot of that is proving very valuable to you in your current role. And so speaking of your current role as the CEO at CEDIA, why don't you talk about that a little bit and maybe give us a little brief preview of your day-to-day responsibilities there?
Sure. So I'm 11 months into my job now. On October 1st, I'll celebrate my 1 year anniversary. And, I like to say this, I serve my staff, our members, and my board. So, and, I like to say in that order because, the better that we can make our staff, the better we're able to serve our members. And our purpose is to drive business and profitability to our members. So we have two offices, one in Indianapolis, where I am today, and another just outside of London. And we're a staff of 53, serving a global market. And, we have strength, obviously, in the United States, Canada, Latin America, the EMEA region, and we're once again invigorating our presence in Australia and New Zealand.
Very cool. And I'm sure most people have heard us here on the podcast use the word CEDIA, and they know that it's a trade show, but CEDIA is so much more. I guess we'll probably go into a little more deep dive and into some of the initiatives you have going on for CEDIA. And of course, we'll talk about the show coming up in next week. Holy cow. I hope you're ready. But give us kind of an idea of what, CEDIA's role in our industry is.
Right. In a way, it drives me a little bit crazy that, we're referred to as a show. We are so much more than a show, but, one of our greatest strengths at CEDIA is this community. And we create the community with our show, with things like Business Exchange and our tech forums. And, we have an online forum that we call CEDIA Community and CEDIA Group. So we're constantly, every single day of the year, bringing our members together to collaborate. Okay, CEDIA is an association that governs, what's soon to be, $100 billion worldwide industry for, residential technology. And, we like to help those make their start. We like to help those veteran organizations with, best practices for hiring and retaining talent and teaching sales and marketing 101, not to mention all of the technical training and, certifications so that each of our members can maximize their profitability.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of, you mentioned, made brief mention of the fact that I think you said you're 11 months in, so coming up on a year, so pretty new undertaking here for you relatively in the space. And I know you've got a number of initiatives that you've been really emphasizing for the organization in trying to kind of put your own spin on it, right? And that's the job of a CEO. And so I know one of the big things I've heard talked about is this idea of life lived best at home. And would love you just to give a brief overview of what that initiative is all about.
Sure. So, life lived best at home. Okay. CEDIA provides vision, connection, and all of the resources to empower our member integrators and manufacturers to collaborate. And that, expands prosperity for the channel. And we do this. Our mission is serving homeowners. I like to call them clients. Because these clients, they own homes, they own yachts, they wake up with their technology, they go to sleep with their technology. So the vision for, life lived best at home actually will transform over time in short order for life lived best. And so a CEDIA member, a CEDIA member is trained to provide exceptional experiences to homeowner clients.
Well, speaking of technology, there's been a number of changes in our industry over the last, couple of years, I would say. We started noticing this. Jason was one of the first in our group to really notice that there's been a burgeoning do-it-yourself Internet of Things type products kind of seep their way into the CEDIA marketplace, and even into the CEDIA show. I think 2014 we were kind of walking around going, wow, there's a lot of DIY product here too, which I think is fascinating to see. And what impact do you see that having on the typical home tech professional who's trying to to make a living on a day-to-day basis moving forward?
So our CEDIA members have to embrace all technology. Okay, when CEDIA was founded, it was founded as the Custom Electronic Design and Installation Association. Okay, today we've trademarked the word CEDIA and we've defined it to be synonymous with technology. And that's all technology. When you go into Lowe's and Home Depot and, you see all of these kiosks and point of purchase displays for automated locks and doorbells and, some simple lighting controls. A homeowner may buy those products, okay, but they're not even inclined to take them out of the box and set them up themselves. They want a professional in the house to help them with all their technology. And, I'll give you an example. Last year at my show, someone that appeared to be very important came into my booth. And, we sat, we talked, and I said, "So how can I help you?" And he said, "I've got no one to hang my TVs." And this was the chairman of Vizio. And,
Wow.
It's kind of funny, right? Because what homeowner do any of us know that buys even a TV and hangs it themselves? For the most part, homeowners aren't even inclined to take the TV out of the box and put a scissor stand on it, much less, run cable and, put a back box in and put, wall mounts and all that stuff to get the TV hung. So, we went to work with Vizio and we created these cards that said, have this equipment installed by a CEDIA home technology professional. And now we're talking with Vizio about adding these cards in what are 9 million TVs a year that they sell. And so my point with that is, let's get our home technology professional in the home. And when we get that home technology professional in the home, providing a service for what most think are DIY, I don't believe that. It's actually DIFM, do it for me. When we get a CEDIA home technology professional in the home, we walk away with more business. And I tell you, I have a very quick, simple story to share with you. Last year at my show, I did a lot of interviews. Pretty much every minute of my day was booked with appointments the way I like it. And at the end of the night, I retreated to my room and I'm checking my Twitter. You guys know that I'm active on social media. Mm-hmm. And I see this guy in Europe is writing disparaging things about CEDIA. So somehow through Google, I connect with him and I say, "Hey man, I'm coming to Europe to visit my office in, several weeks. Let's get together." And he writes, No, don't want to get together. Now it's the end of my day and I'm cranky about, this. So I said, "Look, I'm coming to Europe. I'm going to find you and we're going to meet. And you're going to let me know why you're down on CEDIA." Well, it turns out he met me in our office in St. Neots in England. And the first thing he said to me, he said, "I'm becoming a CEDIA member because it's costing me money not to be a CEDIA member." So my first reaction was like, no. You don't get to write disparaging things and then just because I'm here, you're becoming a CEDIA member. Let's fix the problem. And what it is, it's a small company. It's a couple people. He couldn't get the dealerships for a couple of the big brands. And, he was hurt by it. And so we started talking and he was telling me the story about a plumber. Okay. He got called to a home, right? As, for a friend of a friend, said, "Contact this guy." So at 7:30 p.m., he shows up at a house and this homeowner is cold because a plumber installed 3 Nest thermostats in the home and they weren't working. The plumber did a good job putting the thermostats on the wall, did a good job wiring up the boiler, but couldn't get it programmed. So this guy spent the next 2.5 hours getting those 3 Nest thermostats, which were already installed, to work, right? At the end of the evening, he had coffee with the homeowner, walked away with more than 10,000 pounds in new orders. But the 3 things we learned was, number 1, Nest thermostats aren't so DIY. Number 2, plumbers are installing technology. and finally get one of our guys in a house and they'll walk away with orders. So that's the state of DIY versus DIFM versus just technology.
I've been saying that about Nest thermostats for quite some time. I mean, they're not exactly an easy thing to do. It's a couple of wires that you have to hook up to a board. And I find that like even smart home pros kind of get intimidated by something as simple as a thermostat. And, it all comes down to training, which of course, CEDIA offers as well. Let me take a back up a little bit and talk a little bit about your thoughts on the importance of the luxury solutions that we have in this CEDIA marketplace. In light of all the things like Nest thermostat being introduced, where do you think like the big high-end luxury systems like you and I mean, sure, Crestron is one of them, for example. Where do you see those platforms sitting moving forward?
Well, I mean, our world is getting wealthier by the minute. So it's still necessary. I mean, we talk about more than 1.2 billion housing starts in 2015. A lot of those homes are valued at over $1 million. I think that I'm bullish on the business. And I'm working very closely with, world-renowned dedicated home theater designer, Theo Calamarakis. And we're working together on an initiative that Theo and an investor and George Walter now, they created a company called Reva. And the idea behind Reva is, pre-designed dedicated home theaters. Because when dedicated home theater market declines, we all suffer for it, right? We sell fewer projectors and screens and chairs and, there's less integration work and on and on and on. So when Theo, had this, vision for invigorating that market, I was on board. Any CEDIA member that is interested in driving business, they have my attention and they have my support and my efforts.
Very good. Love it. Well, yeah, I agree. I think that really with the way our market is evolving, it's going to be critical for anyone looking at this industry as a way to feed their family for the next 10, 15, 20 years to really embrace all segments of the market and understand that, yes, CEDIA still is very much a show about luxury, but at the same time, we've really got to pay attention to the shifting realities of our market and figure out, what's it going to take to monetize on that as well. And I just want to give. Oh, go ahead.
Well, let me interject here. Here's what being a member of CEDIA, the Technology Association, which is an addition and more than the Custom Electronic Design and Installation Association. We have to become the single point of contact for all of our clients' technology needs. Right? We should not send away our clients to call an electrician to hang a TV. We should get in there and support that client for that effort. And we should be paid for it, right? Because once again, homeowners, they don't know what they don't know. We're the professional, we're the consultative group that can help them, enjoy a life lived best at home.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I find that to be kind of challenging in a couple of respects, simply because I've worked for a number of businesses in the CEDIA marketplace, and some of them were CEDIA members and some of them weren't. But I think we all come from like different backgrounds. I have a pretty high, a pretty long history with networks, and I got into the business when home networking was kind of a big thing, and security guys really didn't know how to do it, so they would bring me in to set up a real home network. And I still see that playing out right now. Like I don't know how we can become the single point of contact if we have all these different businesses doing different types of work. Does that make sense? I mean, it seems like we have security guys, we have some HVAC guys in the business, we've got some guys that just hang TVs, and then we've got some guys that just wire houses. And I don't know how do we forge forward if we're doing such different things?
Well, it's kind of funny. I think we as an industry let that happen. But what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of years is a convergence between security and home automation. You'll see less of the home automation guys saying, oh, let the security guys do it, and vice versa. Okay, we're gonna be, we're gonna be working together, learning each other's crafts, merging. You won't be turning down security, jobs for installing security in homes. You can't, because it'll be just too darn competitive out there if you don't support the homeowner. If you send the homeowner away to another group, then that group will learn your craft.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I want to move on here to make sure we leave enough time to talk about the show. But I do want to give a quick plug here to a video that we mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast. It was a conversation, Vin, between you and Shelly Palmer that was up on a little YouTube video where, he had an idea that he expressed in there about this opportunity of being the solutions provider as opposed to just the installer. And I really liked that. We're going to include a link to that in our show notes at HomeTech.fm for this episode. Once again, I think anybody listening to this conversation we've been having for the last few minutes would be well served to take a few minutes. That was like a 3-minute video, and definitely worth going and watching. And so I do want to move on to talking about the show, because that's obviously a big deal and it's right around the corner. But I want to ask one more question and give you a chance here on air to share some thoughts about it, because I know this has been a hot topic in the industry, and it's this idea of as a CEDIA channel, what are we going to call ourselves? Are we going to move away from the term integrator and towards something like you've suggested, technologist? I've been out there kind of suggesting Home Tech Pro. There are pros and cons to all these different names, and I think it's an interesting conversation. Now would be a great time to share your thoughts. So let us know kind of where you stand on that.
Well, it's certainly been a fun conversation. It's gotten a lot of press. And I will say this, that, come 2019, 2020, our members will be glad that I said technologists first. So here's, we started our year, right, with the show, CEDIA 2015. Following that show, we did a survey, and more than 1,600 of our members answered that survey. And they want to be called home technology professionals. Our members identified 2 pain points. One is workforce development, and the other is consumer awareness. And you know what? Workforce development and consumer awareness go hand in hand, because, students graduating from college with a philosophy degree and they can't get a job still should be able to earn a noble career. And, they won't raise their hands to become installers or integrators, okay? And homeowners aren't Googling. They aren't going on Google searching for us to find installer or integrator. Our SEO tells us that they're looking for us via smart home or home theaters, but not everybody's shopping for a home theater. Some people just need a home network upgraded because they've got so many more connected devices in the home. So, with the proliferation of connected appliances, people's home networks aren't capable of handling those increased number of connected devices. So they have to find us. And so what I said was that we are technology companies, and one who specializes in technology is a technologist. That's not what we're called today, but I'm glad I said it.
You're sticking to your guns. I like it.
That's right.
It's funny because I'm advocating for Home Tech Pro, but I think I might be a little bit biased. So we'll have to see how that all pans out. But I think either way, it's an important conversation.
And by the way, it's funny because I've challenged everyone on this. Anybody who has commented negatively, I've challenged them and said, well, what should that one word be? And it's kind of funny because everybody comes up with 2 or 3 words.
2 or 3,
I say, stop.
Right.
You got to come up with one word. So will Home Tech Pro ever roll off the tongue the way electrician, lawyer, doctor, plumber, realtor? Those are one-word descriptions. Lawyers are so smart, they have 2 one-word descriptions for them, attorney and lawyer.
Well, you've got me beat there. I will admit, yeah, that's a challenge. Getting to that single word, I think, is important. And so definitely an interesting conversation and I think an important one. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. But let's let's move into the show here. Let's talk about CEDIA coming up in Dallas. As this episode first airs, we're going to be less than a week away from the show. And let's start just with the high-level view, Vin. I just want to hear you share your thoughts. You've mentioned that CEDIA is much more than a show, and we've talked a lot about that. But obviously, the show is very important, and I'd love for you to share your thoughts on why you think attendance at CEDIA in general is vital to our industry.
Well, so you mentioned Shelley Palmer. First things first, on the eve of the show, Shelley Palmer is going to give his keynote. I encourage every home technology professional to come. Shelley is, he's the technology expert for CNN, for Fox, and he's in the circle of New Yorkers where he's in 30, 40, $50 million homes. And he's not going to be giving a fluff keynote. He's going to talk about the business that we're leaving on the table, right? That we have not delivered an exceptional experience to our clients. That if we can go back in time 15 years to the early adopters of home automation, that we would be quadruple in size as an industry today. But yet we're fortunate. We're in a good place. We have a great foundation from which to build. And that is, the greater than 80 million millennials that exist out there that just expect technology. He'll be talking about that it isn't a smart home or a connected home, and dare never say future home, because future implies you can't get it, okay? And it's here on our show floor. So we're moving toward just home, and technology is expected in the home. So I'm starting right away with Shelley Palmer's keynote. But you know what? Even the day before that, on Tuesday, we start training. This year, we have many, many classes, much training that lasts from Tuesday through Saturday. We have close to 500 exhibitors on the show floor, and we're expecting 20,000 of our colleagues to walk it, enjoy it, get educated, collaborate, party, and just, enjoy the physical presence. That's what a trade show does. Our CEDIA 2016 show is the physical presence that represents our industry.
Yeah, I've got to agree with. I mean, that's 100%. This is the show here in the States for our industry, hands down. There used to be a number of other smaller ones that existed, and they've all kind of come and gone. And I think there's a couple of other ones that are popping up here and there now that the market's coming back. But CEDIA has always been, the mainstay. This is where we went every year. As soon as I entered the industry, I've been involved at just about every aspect of it. But I've presented, I've been on the show floor working, and I've been in as an attendee, and I've been in training. So it's an absolute great show, and I love every aspect of it, both the business aspect and going around and seeing the new technology, down to the social aspect, which a lot of people go for, is to catch up with colleagues and have a couple of adult beverages in the after hours.
There you go. Well, and let me share this with you. CEDIA supports all events, okay? The difference between working on the private sector for a company like Crestron versus, being the CEO of an association is that we don't have competitors. The way we succeed is through collaboration. And wherever there's a customer-facing event, I want CEDIA there because we can deliver value to those events that deliver value to what will ultimately be our members. And getting back to our show floor, we have invited, there will be the CEOs of the National Association of Home Builders, the National Kitchen and Bath Association. We have the CEOs of Sonos that will be there. One of the highest ranking people, Charlie Kindle for Amazon at the show floor. We have Google and Nest and, yes, and then we still have the JVCs and Barcos and Sonys. I mean, it's incredible what you're going to be seeing out there. So industry leaders are going to be in Dallas amongst us next week.
Yeah, and definitely look forward to it. Like you guys alluded to, it's a lot of fun to go out there, and just that physical presence I think is really important. I look forward to CEDIA all year. It's one of my favorite times to be in this industry just because I go there and I just come away feeling so energized about the industry, and just having that ability to go and reconnect with some old friends and see new technologies and just get reacquainted with perhaps technologies that you've worked with before but have maybe fallen by the wayside. I just think there are so many opportunities present just by attending a show like this. So I think it's really important. I have a piece coming out in Residential Systems here this week where I kind of talk about, I call it the Big Four, and it's kind of the main four themes that Seth and I are, or that I'm looking for going into the show. And I'd be curious to hear if you have any thoughts on maybe the top 2 or 3 overall broad trends that you expect to see emerge from the show floor this year.
Well, voice control is leading it, right?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then anything that can be connected will be connected. And there's nothing easy about connecting to a home's Wi-Fi network. So network connectivity, those are to me and then of course 4K and projection systems. Now Texas Instruments is releasing chips just in time for our show. It's a big deal for manufacturers out there for right priced 4K projection systems. And then who could forget Stewart? Stewart is unveiling something that's going to be really cool. I've been following their videos very, very closely. So I think that's somewhere in regards of 8K and 16K.
This is Stewart Film Screen, the large format home theater screen company, correct?
Yep. It's been fun. It's been fun watching their campaign.
Awesome. Well, yeah, lots to do and lots to see. So we're really looking forward to it. And we're going to kind of go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Jason. So what are your top 4 themes?
Yeah, well, so listeners to the episode right now are going to have heard them already. I'll hit them here quick because those are going to air actually in this episode on our preamble that we're going to record. But basically, voice control is a big one that I'm looking at. This idea that I've sort of started to develop, that I've seen this phenomenon emerging where I'm calling it kind of meeting in the middle. So for the last couple of years, we've been talking about what we've been calling the DIY convergence, and that's just this appearance of more DIY consumer-focused products on the show floor. And we're just starting to see now, which I think is interesting, a lot more of these products taking a more aggressive approach to reaching out to the CEDIA channel and figuring out how we can work together. So a great example of that is Eero, the new Wi-Fi solution that was just on Kickstarter recently and has a partnership with Access Networks. You've got Sonos taking a whole new stance on integration. There's a lot of different things going on where I think a lot of these DIY products are starting to realize that this is pretty tough and that they've got this whole industry full of people who have decades of hard lessons under their belt, and they'd be crazy not to leverage that. And then the 2 other ones are luxury is still important. And, we talk a lot about the DIY and consumer products and what the implications are to our industry. But CEDIA, to me, is still very much a show about luxury and getting out there and finding what the real, high-end differentiators are that we can still build a lot of business around. And then the last one is something that I'm starting to call RSM, Remote Systems Management. So these are systems like IHG and Krika and a few others that really, are starting to develop. Domots is another one that comes into mind. So that's a quick summary. Like I said, our listeners, that's going to be a little redundant because they just heard those earlier in the episode. But those are kind of the key themes that I'm looking for. I don't know if Seth wants to jump in here and add any of his.
Yeah, I've got one this year. If voice control doesn't win out, then the video doorbells will, because all the rumors are saying that there are going to be a massive amount of video doorbells on the show floor this year. Up to 16 exhibitors are going to be demonstrating doorbell cameras, which should be interesting. So I'm all for that. I have a Ring at my house. I think it works great, and I'm excited to see what other parties bring to the table.
Right. So I just want to share a couple of things, right? You bring up the doorbells, right? You probably have your Ring in the traditional spot right outside the door. But a great use case for a doorbell is right inside the home. If you're at work and you have young people in the house, they just want to see their parent, they can just push that button, and with one button push, you're looking at your kid. So here's the value we provide to manufacturers. Okay. You know what follows a record sales month for manufacturers typically? is record return month for incorrect implementation, right? The better we are, the more our products stay out in the field. Everybody wins. So it's a good time to be in our business. There's lots of prosperity ahead. And, our most successful home technology professionals are ones that know that, if they look in their parking lot and they see their van just parked there, it isn't making them money. Anyway, anyhow, we can get inside the home with homeowners. We can upgrade their technology. We can install their technology. We can design their whole home system and provide them with a technology lifestyle that gives them a life lived best. That's our value.
Yep, love it. Well, let's wrap up here. We're running short on our time. Want to make sure we touch on the fun stuff. Vin, what are the biggest parties that you're planning to attend out at CEDIA this year?
Well, I was just invited. Well, first of all, our own. Okay, there's a couple of parties. We do a volunteer reception for all our volunteers throughout the year. We can't be who we are without the help of our volunteers. I'm so thankful for the friends that we have that support CEDIA. And then, of course, our own party following the keynote. It's going to be terrific. It's going to be at Gillies. Everyone's invited. Dish is sponsoring part of that for the drinks, and it's going to be a fun time had by all. We've got about 1,400 people that are registered for that event. So I'm looking forward to that. And then just tonight, I was invited to, a poker tournament. One Vision Resources sent me an invitation for a poker tournament on Friday night, and I happen to be free. So I'm excited for that.
That sounds great. Well, Vin, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of what's got to be a crazy busy week for you. I've actually planned and worked in the show business, so to speak, and set up these massive conferences for an arts organization. And this is crunch time for you. So I really appreciate you taking your time and coming on the show here and talking about the industry with us. I really do appreciate your time. So if people want to reach out with you, I know you said you're active on social media. If people want to reach out and touch base with you, where's a good place they can do that? Twitter's
always good. CEDIA_Vin. I'm very active on Twitter. And of course, they could just reach out to me by email at vbruno@cedia.org. I answer all my emails typically on the same day that I get them, worst case the next morning.
Very good. Yeah, and I can attest to that, Vin. You were very responsive when we reached out to get you on the show, and so we really appreciate that. And once again, just want to thank you for coming on. Wish you all the best of luck as you guys ramp up and get ready for the show, and we look forward to seeing you out in Dallas.
Thank you very much. And what makes this show great is the staff. We have a heck of a staff that are just expert in this. I ran shows for Crestron, and typically for a Crestron booth, it would take over 100 people. Okay, we have 43 people here, 11 in Europe, putting together a show that's 250,000 square feet, and we have our own 2,000 square foot booth within it, plus parties, plus awards, and keynotes. So I praise my staff.
Very good, and I'm sure that is well deserved. So thanks again, Vin. We look forward to seeing you out at the show, and appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.